Hi guys, so the news today, there's quite a bit. So we're talking about what's going on with the current eruption, what is the activity like, but then we're also talking about the home buyout for the people of Grindavik. There's news from the company that's supposed to do it, Thorkatla. So there is news, and then there is a big disagreement again amongst scientists of the MET Office, other scientists, and Thorwald's on, and he has the guts to say that he thinks that the other guys are wrong and the other guys think that they're right. So there's different opinions about what's going to happen with this eruption, because we have a very unusual situation and they all agree on that. A situation that Iceland has never seen before and that nobody has ever seen before anywhere in the world. While we have a current eruption that is spitting out lava, we have a shallow magma chamber that's at a depth of around 4 to 5 kilometers underneath the Blue Lagoon and the Swartsengi power plant that's north of Grindavik, that is filling up with magma, and at the same time the magma is coming out of a deeper magma reservoir. It's also flowing out into the eruption. And so why is that? So we're waiting for the next events. So that's an interesting topic, guys. So let's dive right in. What is the Icelandic Meteorological Office saying? So according to them, the activity in the one crater that has been going single since April 5th, before it has been several craters. We started out with a long fissure on March 16th, then it was about 7 to 8 craters, and then they started dying down one by one, but this guy keeps going since April 5th. So then they thought it's getting a little less, but since yesterday they thought, or the day before yesterday, oh, is it getting a little more? Because maybe it does, because we've got this pressure building up in the magma chamber underneath Swartsengi. So more than 10 million cubic meters of magma are in that chamber. So normally when it's that full, it reaches its point of maximum elasticity and it sends the magma on its way to cause an eruption or an intrusion. So usually that happens between 8 million and 13 million cubic meters. You see the graph here below. That's what the other events did in the past. So if you see the red line here, that's where we are right now, like as of yesterday. So what is coming out of that crater right now is similar to the amount of magma that has been coming out in the recent days. So there is not a lot of change. So they have done a new risk assessment, and now the risk inside the town of Grindavik is considered very high due to lava flow. If they're expecting that if there is a new event happening, because that full magma chamber will send out magma either in a new eruption or it will increase the current eruption, that there will be lava flow towards Grindavik because of that. And we know that some lava has already crossed the defense wall a few days ago. It's not fast, but if there's a new eruption, this fast lava that we've seen in the past when the eruption started could flow towards Grindavik again. So Met Office thinks it's very likely that we will soon see news, something will happen. And then they think that it's very likely it will have little to no warning. So there's no warning time. And then the lava will flow quickly. That's what they're saying, quickly south to Grindavik. And also the police and others in charge, that's what they're saying. The people in charge of operations in Grindavik are therefore fully aware that this is coming. So we have about 15 to 18 businesses running in Grindavik right now. Last night, about 20 homes were occupied overnight by residents. There's about 100 workers in the town on a regular basis. They basically mostly work around the harbor in the fish processing plants, but that might lead to another emergency evacuation. But you know, if it's only lava flow, and if the lava will flow from the same area where we have the current eruption, they will have enough time to get out. And they don't expect that there will be a big earthquake swarm that could open more cracks in Grindavik or something like this, because basically the tunnels, the flow path for the magma is already there, because it's already erupting, if it will send the magma to the same eruption site. And here comes the reason why the scientists are fighting about that. Thorwaldsen does not agree with the Met Office at all. And he says our opinions do not match at all. Thorvaldur Thorvaldsson is a professor of volcanology at the University of Iceland. And as I said, I like that this guy speaks out and he tells his opinion, even if it's not pleasant sometimes, but I like that he has the guts to do so. Is he right? Well, we don't know. Time will tell for sure. But he says, you know, we have a certain experience and knowledge that will take into account what the history is telling us. And that's why he said it is most likely that a new event, you know, will add volume to the current eruption that we're seeing right now. And he says all the talk that an eruption can occur anywhere, somewhere else, he says, I think it's completely wrong. Because there has been news that, for example, with Benedict of Feiksson, he's a geophysicist at the Icelandic Meteorological Office, and another guy, Pál Einarsson, he's a professor emeritus of geophysics, that they said, well, this has not been seen before, that volcanic eruptions and a land rise at the same time, because the magma chamber is filling, that's why we see the land rise, occur at the same time, and that's why there is considerable uncertainty of what might happen next. So that's what these two guys said, but Thorvaldur thinks there is not that much uncertainty as the tunnels and the lines are already there. It will probably add up to that eruption, but he also has two different scenarios about that. But let's see. So Benedict of Feiksson, he basically said that he was most worried about an eruption that would come from the current eruption, because he was saying if it erupts in that area, there could be a crack opening, a fissure opening that could be as long as 2 to 3 kilometers, and magma could spill out there. And that could open with little to no warning, because it would be in the same area. So also the highways are paved already. The magma doesn't need to grind to new rocks like miners that have to use explosive to build a tunnel. No, that is not the case. The highway is there. But he's worried that there's little to no warning. And why is that important? Because we've got stupid tourists running around all the time trying to hike to that eruption. Although Civil Defense Police Chief Officer Dorns is saying, stay away, it's not safe. You might walk across that area where the new magma might come up, but Police Chief Officer Dorns Police had to block more people from trying to hike to the eruption site just today. So it seems, and they were foreign tourists, right? So are they not informed enough? Are they not aware that something new is going to happen? It could very well be, but they could just be like taking their chances and be utterly stupid. But we know the awareness of tourists is not the greatest when it comes to what is really going on. We are nerds. We're looking at this every day, guys, but they're not. For them, it's vacation, right? Many don't know, oh, are we swimming in the Blue Lagoon? There's a magma chamber underneath of us. There is a chance that it could come straight up. Oopsie, is the eruption still going? So you've seen my videos about that. If not, I urge you to check them out. It's quite funny. Also, Pál Einarsson, he considers that having two eruptions at the same time, so that is a possibility that he considers, because this is the first time also that we have this unique situation with the magma chamber filling up while magma is flowing out already, because they're wondering, why is it filling up if it has a flow path? Why is it not flowing right through? So that's what's unusual and what's like irritating people a little bit and makes the scientists scratch their heads. And that's why Pál Einarsson says, you know, this development that we're seeing right now and the data that we're receiving right now indicates that this magmatic system is not quite the system that we thought it was, that the experts have so far all over the month since November 10th thought that it is. So he thinks something different's going on because it is behaving different. And he says, this is the first time that we've been seeing something like this. So we have no experience that we could build upon where we could say, yeah, this happened in the past at this eruption and at that eruption. So we can expect that once the magma chamber sends out the magma, this and this will happen. No, there's no experience that would help them to predict the future. And he says, such behavior underneath the crust of the earth has never seen before, nor in Iceland, nor in any other country. And here comes my guy Thorwaldson, right? It's not my guy, but I like this guy. He has a different opinion, and he points out that there is no expectation of a new eruption in any other place. So he does not expect that. He says it's rather, what we have to expect is rather an addition to what is currently going on in the Sutnuka crater series. I think he might be right, but what I am thinking is, that magma chamber underneath Swartsengi has been filling up, land is rising, then it sends magma on its way, land is subsiding, it's rising, it's subsiding, it's rising, it's subsiding. It's like with this rubber band, right? It's filling up, reaches the point of maximum elasticity, boof, sends the magma out, does it again, boof. So, but if I do this very, very often, it gets brittle. The elasticity is not that good anymore until I can't really use it anymore. And this is sometimes really the case with the crust above these magma chambers. It wears out, it gets brittle, it gets loose, because if it's like expanding and subsiding and expanding and subsiding. So sometimes once the magma is sent out and the magma chamber underneath is empty, the ground above it could collapse. Why is nobody taking this into account? Because we've had quite a few land rises and subsiding events, right? I'm not saying this is going to happen tomorrow, but they don't rule it out that something could come up to the surface underneath the Blue Lagoon and Swartsengi. It could come up, but what about collapsing, right? When volcanoes form calderas. I think this is something that should be looked at, but they don't want to say that in public because it's bad for the people swimming on top of it, bad for tourism, right? You can't rake in the money. So Thorwaldo says he thinks this system is all interconnected, and he says we have one channel that is currently running the magma through and is erupting, and that's coming from a deeper magma reservoir. And just right now, it is part of the stuff that comes from the deeper magma reservoir is flowing into the eruption, and the other half is flowing into the shallow magma chamber that is, as I said, 4 to 5 kilometers beneath the surface. And he says, well, yeah, it seems that this shallower magma chamber is filling up again right now, and that it has reached its limit. So he doesn't doubt that. But then what happens next? This is where he disagrees. So he says one scenario is that, and if you compare it to a plumbing system, if you imagine water flowing into a large holding tank, and then the pressure in the holding tank is greater than what the tank can handle, the water finds another way and then flows there. Yeah, I'm with him. Magma always takes the way of least resistance, and I think that's why he's thinking it's going to flow into the current eruption. But what if in these magma tunnels the pressure builds up because of that, and then the magma tunnels can't hold everything? It could come up somewhere along that magma tunnel on the way from the magma chamber towards the Sutnuka crater series. Maybe, right? Who knows? So he does say the water finds another way and breaks out there. And he says, if that happens, then he thinks the magma will be added to the current eruption. Maybe will double the amount of the current eruption so that we would see up to 6 cubic meters per second coming out in the current eruption place. And then he thinks maybe the land rise underneath Swartsengi will stop, because then it would stop adding to the shallower magma chamber. Maybe, but eventually it could start rising again and filling up again. Who knows? He has another scenario that the shallower magma chamber continues to fill, and the flows flow through and come straight up, and then the magma chamber empties, but then we would see the land underneath swartsengi, we would see that it will subside. So he says, well, we will be able to observe in the coming weeks which scenario will be more correct. So will there be magma in the magma chamber and it will continuously flowing out, or will the magma chamber empty and the land will subside like it did in the past eruptions? Who knows? But the police of Sudurnes has asked people to not go or to not hike to that eruption because they are thinking and they're saying a new fissure could open at any moment and the power of the eruption could increase. And so Thorvaldur was told that what he's saying does not really match what is being said by the Met Office, and he's fully aware of that. And he says, no, it doesn't match at all. But he says, as explanation for why it doesn't match, in his opinion, the magma always looks for the easiest way to the surface. And as it is right now, since we have the eruption going, there is the smallest obstruction in the eruption channel that flows through the current eruption, and it's an open channel. And of course he says, yeah, I know we can never rule anything out because they really don't know much. The science is not very progressed, but he says at the moment the most likely end is it will go into the current eruption, and that's why he thinks that the other guys are probably maybe exaggerating the danger that will come from the next event. He says if the magma is added to the current eruption, the crater can expand the current one, or the fissure that maintains this that is along there is the longest can open up again, and then this could be to the south or to the north. But then he was asked in an interview, well, what should the public believe if these messages that you guys are giving are so contradictory, right? It's confusing. And he says, well, he gives a reason, and that's an interesting point. He says there is a certain difference between the view and interpretation of geologists on the one side and geophysicists on the other side when it comes to how they look at these eruptions. He says the difference between geology and geophysicists is that geologists or the geology looks at a longer time scale. It looks back in time and uses historic events, while geophysics work in the present. So he says there is a big difference between vision and interpretation. And he says we need to take into account what the history tells us and use the knowledge and experience that we have available. Well, yeah, but the other guys are saying we don't have a history about anything similar like that. Not in Iceland nor anywhere in the world. So we can't compare it or learn from history. That's what the other guys are saying. But Thorvaldur says the eruptions are bound to certain eruption lines and they repeat themselves on these eruption lines. Yeah. So he says not only when we look at the short time frame, but also when we look at the longer time scale. So he says all the talk that an eruption can occur anywhere else in a new area, he says, I think it's completely wrong, and it does not match with our knowledge of the volcanic history of the region. He's a doctor of volcanology, right? But you know, the thing is, this region has been dormant for 800 years. So what has happened before, maybe they don't really know exactly. One thing that we know, the whole peninsula is covered with lava, right? We know there's on these lava rocks basically everywhere. So definitely there has been a lot going on in the past. So I guess, we will see who's right. Probably very, very soon. They're expecting something very, very soon. Thorvaldur said 3 days ago that he thinks something's going to happen within the next 48 hours. So he was wrong with that. So, but it could be that it's imminent at any second. And so in light of that, what's happening with the residents of Grindavik? They have protested. They were very unhappy that things went so slow. But the Thorkatla company that was founded to buy out these property has said now they have basically approved 95% of the applications that have been submitted since March, and that they will get things rolling in the buyout process. This is an announcement that has been made on the website of the town of Grindavik. So the board of Thorkatla has approved the purchase of 510 properties, and that will cost them around 40 billion Icelandic krona. As an excuse why it did take so long, they're saying the contracts with the mortgage lenders in the town were not finalized until April 21st. And they say that these agreements were a prerequisite for the company to be able to start purchasing properties with secured loans. So they could have said that earlier, right? Then people at least would have known what they're waiting for. So they're saying that this week they have completed almost 300 purchase contracts and have sent them out to the sellers, so the residents of Grindavik. And they say the value of these contracts is around 26 billion Icelandic kronas. And then they're saying next week we will start with the applications that they have received in the first half of April. And that's a total of 121 applications. And then there's a lot of bureaucratic blah, blah, that they're so happy with the developments and yada, yada, yada. So we have to see how this goes, but it seems finally something is moving, guys. And of course, I'll keep you updated about this and updated about a lot of other stuff that's going on around the world. So check out my channel. I would love for you to subscribe so that I can see you more often. And please leave this video a like. It helps my channel a lot. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I see you very soon, hopefully. Bye-bye.